My mother-in-law tried to destroy my marriage, so I bought her house and made her my tenant. I never thought I'd be writing this story, but here we are. The woman who spent 3 years plotting against my marriage is now paying me rent every month. And honestly, it feels like the universe finally decided to balance the scales. But let me start from the beginning, because this journey has been absolutely wild. When I first met my husband 5 years ago, I was completely smitten. He was charming, funny, and seemed to genuinely care about making me happy. The first red flag should have been when he kept postponing our meetings with his mother. He'd make excuses about her being busy, traveling, or not feeling well. I thought it was sweet that he wanted to protect me from family drama, but I had no idea what I was walking into. Our first meeting happened at a family barbecue, and from the moment I walked through that gate, I could feel her eyes dissecting every inch of me. She didn't say anything outright rude, but there was this undertone to everything she said. When I mentioned my job, she'd make little comments about how demanding it must be, how it probably didn't leave much time for family. When I brought homemade cookies, she'd taste them and then immediately start talking about her own recipe that was apparently much better. The passive-aggressive comments became a regular thing whenever we visited. She'd make remarks about my cooking, my clothes, even the way I laughed. My husband would brush it off, saying that's just how she was, that she meant well. I started documenting these interactions in my phone, not because I planned to use them, but because I felt like I was going crazy. Was I being too sensitive, or was this woman really trying to make me feel unwelcome in her son's life? Things escalated dramatically after we got engaged. She started calling my husband almost daily, always with some emergency that needed his immediate attention. Her sink was leaking, her car was making strange noises. She was feeling dizzy and needed him to drive her to the doctor. Each time, he'd drop everything and rush over, leaving me alone with our wedding plans and growing frustration. I tried to be understanding, but it felt like she was deliberately trying to insert herself between us. The breaking point came when I discovered she had been secretly meeting with my husband's ex-girlfriend. I found out through a mutual friend who saw them having coffee together multiple times. When I confronted my husband about it, he seemed genuinely shocked and promised to talk to his mother. But instead of stopping, she just became more creative with her schemes. She started inviting the ex-girlfriend to family events, claiming she was like a daughter to her and that they had maintained a friendship all these years. I felt like I was fighting a war on multiple fronts, and my husband was caught in the middle, clearly torn between his loyalty to his mother and his love for me. The stress was affecting our relationship, and I could see exactly what she was trying to achieve. She wanted me gone, and she was willing to destroy her son's happiness to make it happen. But I'm not someone who gives up easily, and I certainly wasn't going to let her win. After one particularly brutal family dinner, where she spent the entire evening comparing me unfavorably to the ex-girlfriend, I decided I needed to gather more information. I started paying closer attention to her finances, her living situation, and her general circumstances. What I discovered was that she was living way beyond her means, struggling to keep up with mortgage payments on a house that was far too expensive for her fixed income. She had been hiding her financial troubles from her son, probably because she didn't want to appear vulnerable or admit that she needed help. But I could see the signs, the way she'd nervously check her phone during conversations, the stress lines around her eyes when bills came up in conversation, the subtle hints she'd drop about how expensive everything was getting. She was drowning, but her pride wouldn't let her ask for help, especially not from the son whose life she was trying to control. I started researching the real estate market in her neighborhood, and I discovered that several houses on her street had recently gone into foreclosure. The property values had dropped significantly, and there were some really good deals available for cash buyers. I had been saving money for years, and I had access to some family funds that could make a significant purchase possible. An idea started forming in my mind, and the more I thought about it, the more perfect it seemed. My husband's cousin, who worked in real estate, became my secret ally in this plan. She had always been frustrated with her aunt's behavior and was more than willing to help me navigate the process. We discovered that the mother-in-law had missed several mortgage payments and was actually quite close to foreclosure proceedings. The bank was starting to get aggressive about collecting the debt, and she was running out of options. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. I made a cash offer on her house through a third-party buyer, someone who appeared to be a legitimate real estate investor looking to flip properties in the area. The offer was fair but not generous, exactly what someone in her desperate situation would have to accept. She had no idea that I was behind the purchase, and my husband was completely in the dark about my plans. When the sale went through, I waited exactly 1 week before revealing my identity as the new owner. I showed up at her door with a rental agreement and a smile that I'm sure looked absolutely wicked. The look on her face when she realized what had happened was worth every penny I had spent. She tried to argue, to threaten, to demand that I sell the house back to her, but I held all the cards now. The rental agreement I presented was completely legal and fair, but it included some very specific clauses about respectful behavior and maintaining peaceful relationships with the landlord's family. I made it clear that any continued interference in my marriage would result in immediate eviction proceedings. She could stay in her home, but she would have to treat me with respect and stop her campaign of sabotage. My husband was initially shocked and concerned about my methods, but when I explained everything I had endured and documented over the years, he began to understand the brilliance of my solution. His mother could keep her independence and her home, but she would have to acknowledge my position in the family hierarchy. The power dynamic had completely shifted, and she knew it. The first few months were tense, but gradually, something interesting started happening. Without the constant stress of financial pressure, and with the clear understanding that her behavior had consequences, she began to change. Not overnight and not completely, but enough to make family gatherings bearable. She started asking about my work with genuine interest, and she even complimented a dish I brought to dinner. I think part of her actually respected the way I had handled the situation, even if she would never admit it out loud. I had outmaneuvered her using the same kind of strategic thinking she had been using against me. But I had done it without destroying family relationships or causing unnecessary drama. In a weird way, we had reached a kind of mutual understanding. The rent money she pays me every month goes directly into a savings account that I've designated for family emergencies. I'm not trying to profit from her desperation, but I am making sure that she understands the new reality of our relationship. She tried to destroy my marriage, but instead, she ended up making me her landlord. And somehow, that feels like exactly the kind of poetic justice that makes life interesting. Now, 2 years later, she still lives in the house, still pays rent on time, and has actually become a somewhat tolerable mother-in-law. She'll never be my biggest fan, but she's learned to respect boundaries and treat me with basic courtesy. My husband and I are stronger than ever, partly because we survived her attempts to break us apart, and partly because he finally sees his mother clearly for who she really is. Sometimes I wonder if she planned this whole thing, if she somehow knew that her financial troubles would force her into this situation. But I think the truth is simpler. She underestimated me, and she overplayed her hand. She thought she could manipulate the situation to get what she wanted, but she didn't realize that I was capable of playing the same game, just better. The best part about this whole situation is that it's taught me something important about standing up for myself and my marriage. I spent too many years trying to be the perfect daughter-in-law, trying to win her approval and acceptance. But sometimes, the only way to deal with someone who doesn't respect you is to change the power dynamic entirely. Now she has to respect me, whether she likes it or not. Every month when I deposit her rent check, I remember all those family dinners where she made me feel small and unwelcome. I remember the stress and the tears, and the nights I spent wondering if I was losing my mind. But I also remember the moment when I realized that I had the power to change everything, and I took that power and used it to create a better situation for everyone involved. My husband still doesn't know all the details of how I planned and executed this whole thing, and I'm not sure he ever will. Some things are better left as mysteries, especially when the outcome is so perfectly satisfying. His mother learned that actions have consequences. He learned to prioritize his marriage over his mother's manipulation. And I learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming the person with the power to choose how the story ends. Looking back, I realized that this whole experience taught me more about myself than I ever expected. I discovered that I'm capable of strategic thinking and long-term planning in ways that surprised even me. I learned that sometimes being nice and accommodating isn't enough, that sometimes you have to be willing to play hardball to protect what matters most to you. The house itself has become a symbol of this transformation. Every time I drive by and see her tending to the garden that she now maintains as part of her rental agreement, I'm reminded that respect can't be demanded or manipulated. It has to be earned, and sometimes it has to be enforced. She's learned to treat me with dignity, not because she suddenly likes me, but because she understands that I'm not someone who can be pushed around anymore. Our family dynamics have settled into a new normal that works for everyone. She gets to keep her independence and her home. My husband gets to maintain a relationship with his mother without constant conflict, and I get to enjoy my marriage without someone constantly trying to sabotage it. It's not the traditional happy ending, but it's honest and sustainable, and it feels like justice. The financial aspect of this arrangement has worked out better than I expected. The rental income covers the mortgage and maintenance costs, and the property value has actually increased since I bought it. What started as a strategic move to protect my marriage has turned into a solid investment that will benefit our family for years to come. Sometimes the best revenge really is living well. I still keep those notes I made about her behavior in my phone, not because I need them anymore, but because they remind me of how far we've all come. The woman who used to make cutting remarks about my cooking now asks for recipes. The woman who used to invite my husband's ex-girlfriend to family events now includes me in planning those events. Change is possible, but sometimes it requires the right motivation. The most unexpected outcome of this whole situation has been the way it's affected my relationship with my husband. Going through this experience together, especially the revelation of how his mother had been manipulating both of us, has made us stronger and more united. He sees me differently now, with more respect for my strength and intelligence. I see him differently too, with more understanding of the complicated family dynamics that shaped him. We talk more openly now about boundaries and expectations, about how to handle family pressure and external interference in our relationship. The crisis his mother created actually ended up improving our communication and deepening our trust in each other. She tried to destroy our marriage, but instead, she helped us build something stronger and more resilient. Sometimes, I wonder what would have happened if I had handled this situation differently. What if I had just continued to endure her behavior, hoping that time would change things? What if I had demanded that my husband choose between his mother and me? What if I had simply walked away from the whole situation? But I'm glad I chose the path I did, because it led to a resolution that nobody saw coming. The power of this arrangement isn't just in the fact that she pays me rent every month, though that certainly has its satisfying moments. The real power is in the way it's changed the entire family dynamic. I'm no longer the outsider trying to earn acceptance. I'm an established member of the family with my own agency and authority. That shift in perception has affected every interaction we have. Her friends and neighbors know that I'm her landlord now, and that knowledge has spread through her social circle in interesting ways. People who used to hear her complaints about me now see a different side of the story. They see that I was capable of handling a difficult situation with intelligence and restraint, that I found a solution that worked for everyone involved rather than just creating more conflict. The legal aspects of this arrangement have been solid from the beginning. I made sure that everything was done properly, with all the correct paperwork and legal protections in place. She can't claim that I took advantage of her, because I paid fair market value for the house and I'm charging fair market rent. The rental agreement is standard and reasonable, with the only unusual clause being the one about maintaining respectful family relationships. I've learned that there's a difference between being vindictive and being strategic. Vindictive would have been trying to get her evicted or foreclosed on just to hurt her. Strategic was recognizing an opportunity to solve multiple problems at once: her financial troubles, my marriage difficulties, and the ongoing family conflict. Everyone got what they needed, even if it wasn't what they originally wanted. The timing of everything still amazes me when I think about it. If I had tried to execute this plan a year earlier, she might not have been desperate enough to accept my offer. If I had waited a year later, she might have already lost the house to foreclosure. There was this perfect window of opportunity where all the pieces aligned, and I was ready to take advantage of it. My husband's extended family has had mixed reactions to this whole situation. Some of them think I'm brilliant, others think I'm ruthless, and a few think I'm both. But what matters most is that they all respect me now in a way they didn't before. They've seen that I'm not just a passive victim of family drama. I'm someone who can take control of difficult situations and find creative solutions. The house itself has become a source of pride for me. I've made some improvements and updates that have increased its value, and I've learned a lot about property management and real estate investment. What started as a strategic move to protect my marriage has turned into a new area of expertise and interest for me. I'm actually considering expanding into other rental properties. Looking at this situation now, I realize that my mother-in-law's behavior was probably driven by fear more than malice. She was afraid of losing her son's attention and affection, afraid of being replaced in his life, afraid of becoming irrelevant. Her financial troubles just added another layer of stress and desperation to an already difficult situation. Understanding that doesn't excuse her behavior, but it does help explain it. The monthly rent collection has become a ritual that I actually look forward to. She always pays on time, usually by check, and she's always polite during our brief interactions. Sometimes she'll mention something about the house that needs attention, and I'll arrange for repairs or maintenance. We have a professional landlord-tenant relationship that somehow works better than our previous family relationship. I've started giving advice to other women in similar situations, though I always make it clear that my solution was extreme and required specific circumstances to work. Not everyone has the financial resources or the strategic opportunity to buy their mother-in-law's house. But the underlying principle, that sometimes you have to change the power dynamic to change, the relationship applies to many different situations. The best part about this whole experience is that it's given me confidence in other areas of my life. I've started speaking up more at work, setting clearer boundaries with friends, and taking more risks in general. Seeing that I could handle such a complex and emotionally charged situation has made me realize that I'm stronger and more capable than I ever gave myself credit for. My marriage is now in a place where we can actually enjoy family gatherings and holidays without constantly being on edge. There's still some tension, but it's manageable and it doesn't dominate every interaction. We can focus on building our own life together instead of constantly defending our relationship from outside interference. Sometimes I catch her looking at me with what might be admiration, though she'd never admit it. I think she recognizes that I outplayed her at her own game, and there's a part of her that respects that, even if she doesn't like it. We'll never be best friends, but we've found a way to coexist that works for everyone involved. The financial stability that this arrangement has provided her has actually made her a more pleasant person to be around. She's less stressed, less desperate, and less likely to lash out at people around her. Sometimes solving practical problems is the key to solving emotional problems, and that's exactly what happened here. This whole experience has taught me that family relationships don't have to follow traditional patterns. Sometimes you have to get creative, sometimes you have to be willing to take risks, and sometimes you have to be prepared to completely change the rules of the game. The important thing is finding a solution that works for everyone involved, even if it's not what anyone originally expected. As I write this, I'm getting ready for another family dinner, and for the first time in years, I'm actually looking forward to it. I know that I'll be treated with respect, that my marriage won't be under attack, and that I have the power to leave if things get uncomfortable. That sense of control and security has made all the difference in how I approach family relationships. The house represents more than just a real estate investment. It's a symbol of my refusal to be pushed around, my commitment to protecting my marriage, and my ability to find creative solutions to difficult problems. Every month when I deposit that rent check, I'm reminded that sometimes the best way to deal with someone who won't respect you is to become someone they have to respect. Looking back, I realize that this whole situation could have gone very differently. She could have refused to sell, she could have fought the rental arrangement, she could have continued her campaign of sabotage. But I think she recognized that I had outmaneuvered her, and she chose to accept the new reality rather than fight a battle she couldn't win. That was probably the smartest decision she made in this whole process. The transformation in our relationship has been gradual but unmistakable. We're not friends, but we're not enemies either. We've found a way to coexist that preserves everyone's dignity while establishing clear boundaries and expectations. It's not the warm, loving family relationship that movies and TV shows would have you believe is possible, but it's honest and sustainable. My husband now sees his mother more clearly, understanding both her strengths and her limitations. He's learned to set boundaries with her while still maintaining a relationship, and he's learned to prioritize our marriage over her demands for attention. The crisis she created actually ended up making him a better husband and partner. The neighborhood has adjusted to the new arrangement as well. People know that I'm the owner now, and they treat me with the respect that comes with that status. Some of the neighbors have even approached me about other properties in the area, seeing me as a legitimate real estate investor rather than just someone who got lucky with one transaction. I've kept detailed records of all the rental income and expenses, partly for tax purposes and partly because I want to track the financial success of this investment. The numbers are actually quite impressive. The property has appreciated in value. The rental income has been steady and reliable, and the overall return on investment has exceeded my expectations. The legal framework of our arrangement has protected everyone involved. She has tenant rights that I can't violate, and I have landlord rights that she can't ignore. That clear structure has actually made our relationship more predictable and less emotionally charged. We both know what's expected of us, and we both know the consequences of not meeting those expectations. Sometimes, I think about what this story would look like from her perspective. She probably sees herself as the victim of a daughter-in-law who was too clever and too ruthless. She probably tells her friends that I took advantage of her financial troubles to get revenge. And maybe there's some truth to that, but I think the full story is more complicated than that simple narrative. The success of this arrangement has inspired me to look for other opportunities in real estate and property management. I've started studying the market more seriously, looking for undervalued properties that could provide both investment returns and strategic advantages. What started as a personal solution has become a potential business opportunity. The monthly ritual of rent collection has become a reminder of how much power you can have when you're willing to think strategically and act decisively. She tried to destroy my marriage through manipulation and emotional warfare, but I responded with financial strategy and legal framework. The contrast between our approaches says a lot about the different ways people try to get what they want. Now, when I look at her tending to the garden that she maintains as part of her rental agreement, I see someone who has learned to respect boundaries and treat people with dignity. It took a dramatic shift in the power dynamic to achieve that change, but the result has been worth all the effort and risk involved in making it happen. The most satisfying part of this whole experience is that it's created a stable, sustainable solution to what seemed like an impossible problem. She gets to keep her independence and her home, I get to protect my marriage and earn investment returns, and my husband gets to maintain family relationships without constant conflict. Everyone wins, even if it's not the victory any of us originally imagined. As I finish writing this story, I'm reminded that sometimes the best revenge really is living well. I'm happily married, financially secure, and respected by my family and community. She's still my tenant, still paying rent on time, and still learning to treat me with the respect I deserve. It's not the traditional ending, but it's the right ending for this particular story.